Welcome to another episode of Backpacking America. This is episode 161, which is insane. Wow. That's all I have to say. Episode 161. And this one is going to be a very, very important one. First, I'd like to say it is a terrible, terrible blizzard right now. I was just shoveling for the last 2 hours, and man, is it cold. So I hope you guys are all, staying inside, staying safe. If you're listening to this now, it's probably Sunday for you guys, but it's Saturday night right now for me. So let's just get right into it. So there is a bill called New York State Assembly Bill A416. Unfortunately, it was struck down. It is it's a bill that's been attempted to be passed since 2015, and every single year, for some reason, it's been brought up over and over again, and it's been in various forms. But in the form that it's in right now, I want to look at it because it deals with COVID and the not indefinite detention, but it could be basically the detention of people that are exposed to COVID-19 and people that have COVID-19. So basically, in this bill, it would say that if it did pass, it would take people from their homes and put them in centers until they were deemed not a health risk by the state. So it wouldn't be like a 2-week period. It would be until we feel you're not a health risk. There's no criteria outlined as to, what determines you being a health risk or not. So I want to read a little bit about this. Basically, it was introduced by M. of A. Perry, read once and referred to the Committee on Health. It's an act to amend the public health law in relation to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to the public health. So it doesn't even really specifically mention COVID. This could be the flu or mono or something like that, so it doesn't even specify it. And it says the people of the state of New York represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. The public health law is amended by adding a new section, 2120-A, to read as follows. 2120-A, removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to the public health, other orders. 1. The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease. 2. Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact, or carrier, or suspected case, contact, or carrier of a contagious disease that, in the opinion of the governor, after consultation with the commissioner, may pose an imminent and significant threat to the public health resulting in severe morbidity or high mortality. The governor or his or her delegate, including but not limited to the commissioner or the heads of local health departments, may order the removal and or detention of such a person or of a group of such persons by issuing a single order, identifying such persons either by name or by a reasonably specific description of the individuals or group being detained. So there's more to this too, but basically, if there's a description reasonably significant, I mean, we've seen how descriptions have been totally misused, so you straight up could be oh yeah, we need a black male in his 30s with a beard and dreadlocks, and he typically wears a blue shirt or a white shirt, and he has a bracelet on his left arm. That could be hundreds of people. That's not, you have to actually get the name and address of someone, that this is such a vague order. So to continue, such person or group of persons shall be detained in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises designated by the governor or his or her delegate and complying with subdivision 5 of this section. Wow. Okay, now this bill obviously goes on and on and on, but this is insane. It goes further to say that a person or group removed or detained by order of the governor or delegate pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall be detained for such period and in such manner as the department may direct in accordance with this section. So, notwithstanding any inconsistent provision of this section, a confirmed case or carrier who is detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall not continue to be detained after the department determines that such person is no longer contagious. So, what this is essentially doing is it's giving an unprecedented amount of power to take you from your home and put you in a center to quarantine you with other people that are sick and may be more sick than you are. So you may be like asymptomatic, but then you're in there with people that are like, have double pneumonia, So like you could get just as sick. And knowing that the way that we would handle it, it would go down really bad. Obviously this bill failed, and it failed for a couple of reasons. The first is that it's insane. This is the United States of America. You can't take people from their homes and drag them to a center. You would die if you did that. Like, the person in charge of that would be shot. There's no way. And this is, as much as like the anti-mask protests annoy me, I'm kind of glad they exist, because I feel like because those exist, things like this can't happen. Because if you're very militant in questioning something, like the length someone will go to enforce a controversial order like this, is minimal. They won't go that far. And fortunately, it was struck down. What's more concerning is that this has been going on since 2015. So A6891 was 2015 to 2016 session. 2017 to 2018 was A680, and 2019 to 2020 was A99. So they've been trying for the last couple of years to put this bill out there, and if it was to be enforced, they could just declare a public emergency for anything, really, and just detain you if you were sick or exposed. And this means taking children, taking your grandparents, taking whole families, for an undetermined amount of time, until they're determined by the Department of Health not to be contagious. So I understand, like, trying to mitigate something and take people out of the population so they cannot spread it. But the thing is that there's going to be oversight. There's always governmental oversight. There is corruption. And even in, the cases of our country now, in the very limited lockdown we've had, and, the treatment of different people in health departments, we've seen oversights in care on COVID, and we've seen oversights in government responses to it and in corporate responses to it. So, and we're already understaffed all across the board. Close to 1 million Americans died from this, and millions more are going to have long-term health conditions. So this is just logistically not possible to enforce, but it's also a power grab. I mean, if they've been doing this for years to try and get to detain people for various reasons, there's obviously something a little more sinister. It's not just like this, okay, like, this is getting so crazy. This is like zombie apocalypse level, where we have to, like, literally detain people, But this is just kind of like, it's obviously a power grab just from the words, like, said there. Like, how do you know? Like, for example, like, okay, we got the home test too, So, like, that's another thing, like, why this wouldn't even pass, why it wouldn't even work, because now we have the home tests. So then you would have to mandate testing for the entire state and then detain all those people. And the thing is, too, is like finding space for them. That's why they said medical facility or other suitable facility. So does that mean like prisons or erecting FEMA camps? I must have heard like someone's tinfoil hat go on, I swear to God. That if you start building FEMA camps, like, there was a big conspiracy back in 2012 or 13 that Obama was going to build FEMA camps to genocide Americans with the Chinese or something. So you would literally unearth like a decades-long conspiracy theory, and then like I think half the country would have PTSD and start firing guns and shit. Like there's just no way this could logistically go well without any like armed resistance whatsoever. Um and I certainly like, I would be freaked out if they tried to take me or my parents to some unknown facility, and then I'm government property at that point. I have no free will. I have no freedom of movement. I have no freedom of speech. I'm literally detained. Like that's the word they said, detention. Advise the person or group being detained that whether or not they request release from detention, the governor or his or her delegate must obtain a court order authorizing detention within 60 days following the commencement of detention, and therefore must further seek court review of the detention within 90 days of such court order and within 90 days of each subsequent court review, and advise the person or group being detained that they have the right to request that legal counsel be provided, that upon such request counsel shall be provided if and to the extent possible under the circumstances, and that if counsel is approved, that such counsel will be notified that the person or group has requested legal representation. I mean, and this is another part too. It goes, a person who's detained in a medical facility or other facility or premises shall not conduct himself or herself in a disorderly manner. That could be anything. That could be like saying, no, get the fuck away from me. And shall not leave or attempt to leave such facility or premises until he or she is discharged pursuant to this section. So basically it's saying that you have like a certain amount of days must obtain a court order authorizing detention within 60 days following the commencement. So this is the thing. So basically the governor or whoever is able to do this has to get a court order after the fact of detention. So basically what it's saying is that it can detain you and then get a court order to ask for your detention, which violates the Constitution. I forgot what amendment that was. That was in the Bill of Rights. It violates the Bill of Rights. What, I don't even remember what amendment that was. That's pretty bad, too. It definitely does violate the Bill of Rights of the United States. So that's, because you can't arrest someone and then ask a court, hey, is it okay if I arrest this person? Like, that's not how that works. And I'm not a legal expert, too, so, like, if I'm wrong, sorry. Basically, I see this as a form to keep people divided. Basically, this whole COVID thing, like, I'm not an anti-COVID person. I just had it. Like, it sucked. I don't know if I'm going to have long COVID. I'm a little nervous about that, but I'm doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. But I feel like the circumstance is being exploited to further control over a population and to divide the working class. So a lot of people like, and I'm not absolved from this either. I was irritated about like anti-vaxxer discourse or whatever, and like people that didn't want to get the vaccine. I'd never like canceled my friends or whatever. Like I never was just like, oh, I can't be friends with you. I'd just be like, yo, like you should get the vaccine because like it might save your life. Like it's a vaccine, and it's true. Like if they wanted to kill you, like they don't want to kill you because that puts us as a class in a better position to negotiate fairer wages. I mean, we're already seeing that with the Great Resignation and places offering like $18, $19, $20 an hour when previously they were barely minimum wage. And we're seeing, Starbucks getting unionized, and we're seeing unions going on strike and a rise in union membership. So this is all threatening, and this is all within a direct reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and, the worsening economic conditions for the average American. So, people dying means less workers to work and more workers to demand better wages because they have to make up for the shortage of labor. So I think this is really a way to consolidate power as much as they can while keeping people divided. So I think the reason that bill did not pass is because that would effectively, one, it's illegal for like various reasons. It would be a logistical nightmare, but two, it would be just like people would resist that. Whether you're a Democrat a Republican, white, black, Latino, urban, rural, like, people would revolt against that. Like, it's just, that's like way too far, and there's not enough compliance to allow for that to even happen. So this kind of gets to like this kind of class analysis, right? So during this pandemic, the World Economic Forum has met, and they openly call themselves the elite at this forum too. If you look at Betsy Davos saying that how do us as the elite get our goals done, basically. Look it up. It's a really scary conference. And it was very out in the open, but basically it was a discussion that corporations need to be careful on their actions and how openly they profit from the pandemic. So basically the great resignations have been in response to corporations essentially like exploiting workers and making billions of dollars in profit. So people could expect, improved social and health safety nets, such as better unemployment benefits and improved universal health care. Like, you would expect that from, like, this pandemic, right? But that's not happening. Our hospitals are still getting... I remember when Cuomo was still governor, he cut hospital funding throughout the state. I think he closed a couple of hospitals. So it was just kind of like, what the fuck, dude? So there's also supply chain issues, and people are getting irritated with that. And, this is going to like increase costs to corporations, and it's going to, kind of cause more bargaining power for workers, because it's like, okay, well, this is a shit show and we have to deal with this, and there's less of us now, so we kind of want more money. That's more like how I could see this kind of playing out in favor of us. And this kind of worked similarly in the Black Death. So basically, I'm just looking at my notes. Basically, the Black Death, which is a period of about 12 years, so from 1347 to 1351, Europe saw a lot of change in its feudal policies. So basically, 30 to 50% of the population died, and there wasn't enough people to work for their lords. So the supply and demand equation's been like flipped, and people rejected work at these levels, and basically it increased their their wages, and effectively ended serfdom. So this was kind of like a great reset that the elites feared. And when I say the great reset, I'm not talking about like the right-wing conspiracy theory. Basically, they kind of have it right, where there is a world order, but it's not like run by the Jews or lizard people. It's literally just the wealthy people with the corporations. You know what I mean? So it's like the right wing is like so close, but then they're like, the Jews! And it's like, no, it's really just the wealthy people. But some of those wealthy people are Jews. Yeah, some of them are, but not all Jews are conspiring. Like, sometimes it's really hard to, like, the radical right scares me a lot. But basically, looking at what this current Great Reset is, it's like, how do we make sure that the neoliberal governments and globalism don't collapse and face a Black Death situation? So they're really afraid. The international governments are very afraid of our society collapsing in favor of populist demands. So by that I mean, being against the wealthy, and establishing universal health care, and eliminating racism through class unity, and not infighting, and not worrying about who's vaccinated and who's not. So basically, this is the thing too, right? Like, a lot of confidence in the vaccines has been destroyed because of the high infection rate of Omicron, and that it's able to degrade the vaccines, and basically now it's like a flu shot. I still think you should get your vaccines, because, you might as well. It's not going to kill you. It's certainly going to protect you. There has been, and then I'm sure there's going to be someone saying, oh, well, the CDC said that if you had natural immunity, you had more of a chance of not getting it. And that is true. You had like a 33% 6% better chance or something like that, or a 29% chance, something in that ballpark. But the question is, okay, but would I die or get worse symptoms if I did get it? And really, it kind of depends on the person. There's some of the people that I know that are unvaccinated are healthy people and they work out a lot and they're good. I also know another person that got it when they were unvaccinated, when they got OG COVID, and they died. I know a person that's double vaccinated, smokes a lot, and doesn't eat the best, and he's asymptomatic. So it really depends. And I'm a really healthy person. I don't smoke, I don't drink, and I work out every day and I eat clean, and I had it symptomatic for like 6 days. So it's really just kind of like, it depends on the person, your history with illnesses. Overall, I think the vaccine saved my life. But to get back to the point, like, the vaccine shouldn't be a point of division. Like, there's so much hatred of other people because of their vaccination status. You know what I mean? Like, there's people, even when I'm out in public, like, and they're like, oh, like, I love my mask, I don't know why you're not wearing one, and this, that, the third. And it's like, all right, well, it's really none of your business. I mean, like, I'm vaccinated. I really don't see why you need to care about what I'm doing. I got vaccinated. I did my national duty. I see and it kind of like, there's no need for you to police me and tell me what to do, because it really, at the end of the day, you're just gonna get into an argument with a random stranger or like the person you're hanging out with, and it's like, dude, just I don't even know. It's just kind of like, mind your business a little bit. I get it's a mandate. If the store owner has an issue with someone not wearing a mask, tell them to leave, and then you leave. Some people will put up a fight, but then you just call the police, or you just don't serve them and ignore them. There's ways to do it without being directly confrontational, and there's no need to put yourself in danger or to just irritate someone's life like that. It's just divisive. It just creates this hostile environment, and then some people, they're like, oh, trust the science, but then they wear like these masks that aren't even effective at stopping Omicron. Like, they'll wear the cloth masks, or like they'll wear one of those trendy masks, and it's just like, that's not, I mean, it's a barrier, don't get me wrong. Like, if that's all you have, yeah, but don't go around saying, like, literally putting your political opinions on your mask, thinking that you know what you're talking about when you're just doing it for clout. That irritates me. I also hate how masks, or not wearing a mask, has ultimately determined your political status. Like, a lot of people have, followed that elite mantra of just kind of like taking, like wearing a mask makes you a liberal, and not wearing a mask makes you a Trumper. And, these are people that just spend too much time on the internet, or like on Facebook or something. It's like, look, sometimes people forget the mask. Maybe they ran out. Maybe they just don't care. Like, at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, that person's not your enemy. At the end of the day, the real enemy is, whoever decided that it would be a great idea to leave the country open, and all the state governors not grounding air travel and shutting off their ports. I bash the Trump administration for not shutting down all of the borders, land and air, and I totally blame Andrew Cuomo for not shutting down the ports of entry and, not grounding aircraft, you know what I mean, and starting that quarantine earlier. Like, I totally blame both of them. And that's just because it's a bad, disease control plan. Just shut down the ports of entry, and, that could have been the perfect excuse for Trump to beef up border security in the South. But he should have done it in the North, too, because if this was really that serious, and, the thing is, they knew about it. There was a World Health Forum in 2019, I believe in November, where they talked about the coronavirus and its potential to kill millions of people. So it's just kind of like, why? Why, And that's what I mean by this. It doesn't matter if someone wears a mask or, doesn't want to get vaccinated. Like, obviously, individual actions do determine outcomes, societally, but it's not coming from that point of view when someone asks you or is nasty to you about, your mask wearing or your vaccination status. It's more as like a gotcha and anger and fear. And it's not this like, hey dude, like, I don't know. It's not, it's just the way it's being done is in a snarky, rude gotcha way, and not in a like, we're just trying to, forget what the elites are saying. Let's try to keep ourselves safe and beat this ourselves. It's not, nothing's really being done at the community level. It's more being done at like the governmental level. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like my issue. I'm not sure I'm really being clear on that, but basically, like, I just feel that a lot of people are taking the media narrative like it's the truth. And a lot of, news stations and corporations, especially local ones, they love drama because that's what brings viewers and that pays the bills. So, like, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, this New York State Assembly bill, I saw this on a right-wing Telegram channel, and I was like, okay. And obviously they're freaking out about it because it's like, oh, well, this is why we need to vote Republican. Doesn't matter. This would happen under a Republican leadership too, because they don't understand the class. Not that they don't understand the class dynamic, but they think that the Republicans are the workers' party, and it's not true. And this could even happen in a workers' state. Like, this is just government. I guarantee you. I think something like this is similar in China. Where they'll take you to a facility, or maybe they'll just keep you in your home. I mean, that's way better. But like, this is insane. This bill is absolutely insane, and that's why this focus on division is really hammered down by the government. It's just like instead of fighting people based on like their status of vaccination or masking, you should maybe just be like, hey man, look, just try to be safe, but like our real enemy is like the people trying to actually put us in detention facilities and, I don't know, making billions of dollars in the stock market and trading a month before the lockdowns start. Maybe that should not be a thing. And just so you know, like, while Nancy Pelosi did say, members of Congress should be allowed to sell and trade stocks on the market, that also means Republican Congress people do the same thing. Republican congressmen straight up trade on the stock market just as much as the Democrats. So this is not, the liberals are being the corrupt, or the Republicans are being the corrupt. It's like, no, it's the people in power, because in our country we have the government and the corporations working together and consulting each other on decisions before moving forward. That's also known as fascism. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like open-ended fascism, but the government is fascistic. It's the corporations and the government working together to consolidate power, instead of the government making sure the business doesn't try to take power and the government just trying to do what's good for the country. That's the difference, I really think that the government is really taking advantage of this as a means to really do some serious harm. And they have been for a while, at least in New York. Like I said, this has been going on since 2015, and they've always been trying to make this like a public health emergency. Look, it's the same thing. Assembly Bill 16891 relates to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to the public health. So the last bill status was in Assembly Committee. So it was in the committee, but it didn't move forward. It's still technically active, which is very scary. So it's been active since 2015. Let's check the 2017-18 one. It's still in committee. The 1921 is in committee. And the 2021, which is the same one, is not anywhere yet. Has not been stricken down or anything. But A416, this is the one I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So A416 has nothing. It's been stricken, but the last one was in Assembly Committee. I don't really know what that means in the context of how government works, but all I know is that it says active on it. So, these bills are being pushed forward to try and, remove cases. And that's pretty scary stuff. I get, mandating a lockdown where it's like you got to stay in your house. It's really bad out. I get that. At least you're in your home. You're with your family. But to physically remove, I mean, even if you think about, physically removing people, you know what I mean? Like you're putting even the people that have to do that in so much more harm's way that, this is going to be complicated as hell. It's just a control thing. And that's why we need to be united. We can't stop looking at this stupid, who's vaccinated, who's not, who's wearing a mask, who's not. We have to look at the bigger picture. It's like, okay, the people up top are trying to screw the people at the bottom and make us hate each other, not just based on race now, but also based on COVID status. You know what I mean? It was race in 2020 and 2019. It's still there, but now we're adding in, oh, how are you as a person, an individual, handling the COVID-19 pandemic? And this is amid, but nothing. What isn't getting talked about is evictions and hunger, food insecurity. The supply shortages are talked about, but it's almost just like, oh, this is kind of happening. Yeah, there's not a lot of intense focus on it. What is getting a lot of intense focus is the culture war, and there needs to be an end to this culture war. Everyone's talking about it because it's so annoying, but it's going to get really more than annoying when we can't eat because so many people are getting sick and dying. So it's just kind of take the coronavirus seriously, but don't listen to what the media says, because there was a White House press release from where the White House is basically shaming unvaccinated individuals and said, you guys are going to be plagued with death and destruction during the winter season, and the vaccinated are going to be spared from this. And it's I'm literally triple vaxxed and I got COVID and I still have the cough. So fuck you. You're that's what I'm saying. That's purposely dividing people, and the working people that believe what the elite are saying, that attitude of snarky, indifference, that's doing more harm to us as a collective than good. What sane government says that? That's a government trying to sow division and discord so that way they can pass bills like New York State Assembly Bill 1416. So that way we can be removed from our families and they have effective control over the whole country, so that as things get worse, as food becomes more insecure, as water becomes more insecure, as the need to ramp up war and the need to preserve a country in crisis comes to fruition, they have the things in place to do that. You know what I'm saying? And pathogens and all this stuff are experimented on in labs. So say they release something into the general public that it's not going to be as severe as COVID, but it warrants it enough to be enough to enact Bill A416, right? So then it's oh, it's still not severe enough, but it's not as severe as COVID, but it still merits the point where it's oh, this is a pandemic now. Now we can force everyone in their homes and do some other stuff, if things get rowdy again in America. So this is just we unite together as a class this time and are actually more organized and try to, we go on a general strike, or there's increased there's mass robberies of grocery stores or something because food is so overpriced or insecure, or there's inflation. This is going to be used as a means to keep order and prevent the country from imploding, but it's going to be done so haphazardly, and it's going to be done in a way that's only going to affect those that are working class. So this is literally like, bills like this are like the beginning of the end type of deal. And I really think that, again, like, as much as I hate like the anti-mask protests, and as much as I think it's like, sometimes it's so stupid, like the stuff I see on the news where it's like, yeah, we don't gotta wear a mask. Like, I don't know. Like, if you look at News 12's coverage of the recent mask protests, and you'll see why it's just kind of cringy. It's more the coverage that made it cringy. But basically, like, I'm glad those protests exist, because it's like, it prevents stuff like this from happening. I'm not saying that you shouldn't wear a mask or take COVID seriously, but it's just kind of like, if those protests didn't exist, like, how much more, insane would the lockdowns be, and how much more insane would the government response be, and how much more of a blind eye would we as a society take to what the government's doing in regards to COVID. So, it's just kind of that angle from it. Overall, I really hope this thing ends soon. I hope people, start doing things on their own free will, like wearing masks more. Or I don't even know what we can do as individuals. All I know at this point, because I'm just like a dumb, prole, I don't know, just wear a mask in public until it goes down, or like until like the numbers, like if there's a surge, just like stay home, basically. And then maybe we won't have COVID anymore. I was an idiot and didn't stay home when the surge was happening, and had a really high threshold for what I thought was acceptable to start staying home again. That threshold is a lot lower in retrospect. But I don't know, just stay home during a surge, and like if you have to go out, just like wear a mask or something, and I guess that's really all we can do. And I mean that with respect and love, you know what I mean? Like, the government doesn't is basically my whole point. So I don't know, just like, just do whatever you think is the safe thing to do. Try to be, try not to get this thing, and most importantly, don't like attack other people, really, because then we're gonna have, if we keep attacking each other and like doing all this stuff and staying divided, bills like this will be enacted. And if it's more just like we need to unite based on like class things, like, okay, forget the culture war. How do we fight against these billionaires? How do we fight against food insecurity and inflation? You know what I mean? Because if we're going to unify around like, the pro listen to the government and don't question it side, then we're going to get New York State Assembly Bill 1416. If we go the anti-COVID, anti-masker route, then we're all going to get COVID, and it's going to be a mess, and a lot of people are going to be seriously disabled for the rest of their lives. And for some reason, we're going to have books about the Holocaust banned in schools. So we're going to have that. I think if we just stuck to the economic issues and we united around that and didn't really talk about the social as much, then we'd have a better chance of defeating assembly bills that are insane and would detain people basically indefinitely. And we would also manage the coronavirus in a way that suits our country's, attitudes and culture. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk and listening to another episode of Backpacking America. Make sure to check out my Threadless shop. It is in the chat, actually. Yeah, it's in my link. Oh, no. It's actually in the comments of this Twitch stream, and it's also in my bio on Instagram. And for all of you listening on Spotify, it's also in the description. Same thing for Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Stay warm, and until next time.